Hi guys, this is Yo Boo, and right here I'm in the hutong in Beijing. You might be wondering why am I here today. That is because, ta-da! Today I take you to Shijia Hutong Museum, Shijia Hutong 博物馆. And today is also an important day because on March the 3rd, it is the International Ear Care Day, 爱耳日耳朵 ear, 耳朵 ear. So that is why I come here to show you an interesting sound museum inside of this museum. And let's walk inside and take a look. Alright? Okay, we come inside to the courtyard. Probably you saw somebody who's so handsome. And let me introduce my friend Colin. Hi Colin, how are you?
Hi.
Could you shortly introduce yourself to the audiences around the world?
Sure. My name is Colin Chinnery, and I am an artist and curator based in Beijing.
Oh, great. Artist. Okay, so today let's go artisty. Okay, so right now we are in the courtyard of the Shijia Hutong Museum. Let's walk inside and take a look. And I heard that you have a pretty amazing sound museum inside of this program. Why I say amazing? That is because I just experienced it. It's so good. That is the first sound museum I've experienced in Beijing.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the first. It's the first in Beijing.
Oh, that's
so
why.
That's why. It's
that
the
is
only
why.
one that you've experienced.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and it's small but nice.
Oh, let's experience how small and how nice it is. And while we are walking inside to talk about the reason why we want to initiate this kind of live stream right here, that is because today is the International Ear Care Day, and it was first issued and seen during the CPPCC, the 2 sessions time, and right now we are also familiar with it because the 2 sessions are around the corner. It is usually held in March in China, one of the most important meeting. And if you're wondering what will happen in the future, you can just refer to this kind of meetings. And at the same time, it was first seen in the proposals from the CPPCC. And then we can see it been recognized by WHO. So first, designated at the first international conference. So that is about to care people's hear impairment and also care about the hearing health. So that is why it was designed as March the 3rd as an annual event. So to talk about that, right now we are in the Shijia Hutong Museum. And later on, we'll show you one of the most interesting places, which is the Sound Museum, and issued by Colin. Right now we are inside of the museum. You can see some of the parts. Those are refrigerator that was used by the citizens in Beijing who were using it a few years ago, or like 10 or 20 years ago. Yeah,
I mean,
this
is a model home based on 1980s living in China, and you can see it's very period accurate. So for those people who lived in China during that period, all the items here will seem very familiar. It's quite nostalgic looking at these objects. So you see, that in those days, the fridge, the refrigerator, the stereo with the cassette tapes of the pop music from that era, the small television sets, the fan and the bicycles, and these are all what you call prestige items from those days. In those days, most people did not have TV sets. So if you had a TV set, it would be a very prestigious thing to have. Also, a fridge. In the early days, in the early 80s, I think very few people had fridge. Only, much better off households had a fridge and a TV.
Wow.
Most people, what they'd have is like a bicycle, everyone had, and maybe a sewing machine.
Oh.
Sewing machines were very important.
Yeah.
There's not one here, but there's one in the next room. So a sewing machine, like a bicycle, and then maybe they would have like a cassette tape, like a stereo, stereo to play music. And then if you're better off, you'd have like a washing machine, which is another. You can see it tucked in the corner there. A washing machine is covered with a radio.
Well, so this is more like a rich family.
Yeah, this is all the things that I could have, and obviously things wouldn't be so packed together. But then you'd have a fridge and a TV for better off families. Yeah.
Wow. So basic on those kind of bicycles, I still remember there's one popular song written by foreigners. There are 9 million bicycles in Beijing.
Oh,
have you heard of that?
No.
Oh, so those, especially in the MV, you can also see that the video is they use part of the videos to show back then people are riding bicycles on the streets in that MV.
Yeah.
So those are the bicycles people used back in the days.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's similar bicycles. These are actually also very prestigious bicycles.
How?
Flying pigeon, and this is
Flying
actually
pigeon, 飞鸽.
and this is a 凤凰,
凤凰,
which is means phoenix.
Phoenix.
Now, this is very similar to the British bike brand because Raleigh also used a kind of very similar logo, and that was like the most prestigious bike to have. And if you didn't have a Raleigh, of course, very few people had. Then Fenghuang, the Phoenix, and the Flying Pigeon were the best bikes to buy.
Best bikes.
Very few people could afford them.
Oh, so this is a prestigious
It's
bike.
like, yeah, having a Mercedes or something. You know, like, it's very prestigious.
Wow.
This is room based on the 1950s. We're going back in time. And you can see that the furniture is different. A lot of the furniture was still Chinese classical furniture. In the 1980s room, it was all kind of more modern furniture, factory-produced furniture. Whereas in the 1950s, lots of the furniture people had in their homes were from before the revolution, in the, what you call, old China and old society. So a lot of these were hand-produced traditional Chinese pieces of furniture. Mixed in with that are some modern items. So you can see the sewing machine, which is equivalent to having a TV in the 1980s. So that would be the most prestigious item to have, a sewing machine.
Sewing machine.
Yeah.
To show you that you are from a prestigious family, that you have the sewing machine. And the 飞鸽 and 凤凰.
There you go, yeah.
Right, let's walk inside. Right now, those are the lovely postcards you've seen. And we come to one of the most important parts of today's live stream. That is why we come here today. It has a sound museum. And this is, let me remind you, this is the first sound museum in Beijing. Wow, bravo, bravo. Designed by Colin. So Colin, could you show us around?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the sound museum.
That's right. It's a very small project, but it's the first one of its kind, and it's introducing some of the sounds of old Beijing. Because Shijiao Hutong Museum, where we are, it's based in a courtyard in a hutong in Beijing, traditional Chinese hutong, Beijing hutong. And so when I was invited to do a project here, I thought I would record or reproduce some of the sounds of old Beijing from the hutongs. And one of the most special, one of the most unique sounds from that era was the sound of the street hawkers, the itinerant peddlers of goods and services. So in the old Beijing, a lot of people would have gone out to sell their wares. Instead of having a shop, some people had shops, some people had stalls and markets, and some people actually took their goods with them and went onto the streets and went into the hutongs to sell their goods door to door. They're like the traditional, like, door-to-door salesmen of we know in the West, like in.
But do they knock on the door? Do they knock on the door or let people know?
So this is what I'm getting to. So in the West, we know from the US or Europe, them door-to-door salesmen that we don't like so much later in society. But in the old days, they were acceptable. Were like they would knock on the door and would you like to buy some insurance or something? whereas in Beijing, they didn't knock. They called out what they were selling. So you would wait in your home, or you're in home doing whatever, and you would hear the hawkers selling their wares or advertising their wares using sound. So it's sound advertising. So you would only, if there's something you wanted, you would open the door and you'd call them in. Come here, I want to buy some of your, whatever you're selling. So almost everything was sold by the itinerant salespeople. the street hawkers. And so I wanted to do was to record the sounds of those people, because each person would have a different song or a different melody or a different call for each thing they were selling. So you wouldn't have to necessarily recognize the exact words they were calling out. Sometimes the melody or the call itself would be recognizable enough. Oh, that's what they're saying. Now, some people would use their voice and call or sing out what they're selling. Other people would use a kind of instrument, a sounding device, and they would use that unique sound to advertise their wares. So some of those sounds are so unique that immediately you'd know what they're selling. Whereas other sounds, they would combine the object, the instrument, with a call, and that combination also. So basically everything, if you're from Beijing in those days, immediately you would hear the sound and you know what they're selling, and you would know whether you need it or not. So no need to come to the door for every knock on the door to answer them.
Oh wow! So actually, howling or shouting on the street, we call it. There's one word in Chinese we can call it 吆喝, 吆喝. And right now, let's experience what are the sound like. And right now, let's see.
So we'll start off by the street hawking calls, and so you see. Okay. We'll see that. So we have.
If it doesn't work, you will have to shout for us.
Not going to happen. Okay, so let's see. One of the most popular snacks during the winter is in Beijing called Bingtang Hulu. Let me see. Let me see.
Ah, there you go. This one. This one.
Bingtang Hulu.
Yeah.
So what it is you know, candy apples, like toffee apples or candy apples in the West. You have an apple, it's covered in toffee and candy, and it's sold on a stick. It's exactly the same idea, except here they're not apples, but they're called haw fruit, called shanda. And they're small, they're like crab apples, but they're more tart, they're more sour. They taste much better than crab apples. They remove the seeds and they place it on a long stick, and you'd have a series of these little fruit on a stick, and the whole thing is candies. It's really nice. It's still sold today. So this song is selling candied haw fruit.
米来冰糖葫芦呀哈，冰糖的钢针呢。
So, for those of you who can't speak Chinese, the song is saying honeyed and sweet, selling toffee haw fruit, just, fresh out of the toffee. That's something like that, like that. And they would have a different call for different parts of the city. So this is so popular that actually they would have one call for the south of Beijing, another call for the north of Beijing. The south of Beijing, they have their poorer people with smaller houses. They have a simple call. And for the north, where we are, is where they're richer households, like this one. This one used to be. And they have a longer call. Because if you'd take longer to hear it. Also, it takes you longer to walk from the back of the house to the front of the house to call to the man. Yeah.
So you have to wait for it.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Let's see another one. So this is a favorite snack. That just now was more of a winter snack. This is a summer drink, and it's a kind of prune or a plum. And it's called sour plum soup. It's actually a cold drink during the summer. And this is a particular call that combines a sounding instrument with a song together.
三杯汤那个桂花味儿，喝到您嘴里的冒凉气儿，又解渴又带凉。 不信您就闹碗尝，大碗的酸梅汤嘞，俩嘴一碗了您呐，老爷子来碗尝尝吧您呐。
Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, this is so it's a sound. It's a sonic advert. So he's not just calling out the name of the product. He's actually saying a whole description of how what you'll experience when you drink it. So it's like it says, you know, the sour prune soup. It's all cold and refreshing, and you should have one. You'll feel good. It'll it'll quench your thirst, and it's very cheap, and so on and so forth. It's a whole it's really like a TV advert or a radio advert. It's got the whole thing. It's got a melody. It's got the words of
Musical
an
instrument.
It's got it's got the whole thing. It's like an advert, but just like a human advert rather than a televised or radio advert.
Oh, it's great.
I'll see if I got more of a service. Sorry. Which one?
Repair the umbrellas?
Yeah, this is a rather simple one. But it's the umbrella repairman.
Mm-hmm.
修理雨伞看伞，修理雨伞看伞，
This is very
修理雨伞看伞，
so some of these sounds are very
修理雨伞
Yeah, he's not
看
finished.
伞。
He's not finished.
okay. Some of them are very simple like this. There's just simply fixing umbrellas and parasols, fixing umbrellas and parasols. That's it. So it's very very simple. Let's see if we can find another one. A special one. Oh, yeah. Let me think. I want to introduce the vegetable cellar.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. So the vegetable cellar, what he does is that you've got his whole cart of vegetables, and he would have to sing out everything that's on his cart. So it's a whole song. This has now become very famous because some in Beijing comedians they work in pairs and they're called xiangsheng, and a lot of these performers, they know how to imitate these calls. They become very famous, and especially this call of the vegetable cellar. Now what he does, this is the whole cart of all the different vegetables, but if you have less vegetables, then you'd have to know how to call out those particular vegetables. It's quite complicated, but this is the whole song.
香菜啦，青椒哎，香葱嫩青菜啦，扁豆切的黄瓜加冬瓜，买大海切，买萝卜胡萝卜变萝卜，奶奶呀的香椿哇蒜来好韭菜。
So the thing about this call is that if you have more vegetables or less vegetables, the song still needs to rhyme, and it still needs to sound good. You can't just like call out the vegetables randomly. It has to sound good so that the vegetables are in particular order. So it's quite skillful for the vegetable seller to know how to call out which vegetables in the right order. So that was the calls, the hawks, the stalking, the melody, instruments that you don't need to call. These are rather special, and because most of our audience today don't speak Chinese, so it's easier to figure out what's going on. Okay, so this is called a hutong.
What is that?
Which most Chinese people don't know what it is either. It
I don't know.
literally means, I don't know, keeping up a tiger. So nobody really knows what it means exactly. It's in the shape of a donut. It looks like a kind of like a bronze donut with engravings on top. Now the donut-shaped bronze object is hollow, and inside there's a metal ball, like a ball bearing, a small ball bearing. So when you fit the kind of donut-like shape over your hand like this and you turn it, you get this metallic ringing sound, and that is the sound of the itinerant doctor or the medicine seller.
This one.
A metallic, continuous ringing sound. Now, when you see the doctor or the medicine seller, you will see that some of them, they ring these, they shake the donut like this, or some like this, and some like this. Now this depends on the level of skill of the doctor. So
Wow.
if it's a very high-ranking doctor, a more skilled doctor, the higher they shake the donut, and the lower is like this.
But can you hear the difference in the sound when
No.
you're using it higher or lower?
No. It sounds the
So
same.
you wouldn't know.
No, but you have to see.
You can
where
see
you
whether.
can see. You can see. Yeah.
Oh, that's
right.
great. Okay.
This sound is the only sound that still exists in Beijing today. Not only in Beijing, but also across China. This is the sound of the knife sharpener. So it's a series of metallic plates, pieces of metal that are placed one over the other like fish scales. And when you shake it, the fish scale, like metal plates, they clank together in succession, creating this kind of this sound that you hear. And it's so recognizable. You just hear this and you know, and you've got to, in the old days, you didn't just throw out the knife and buy a new one. You'd probably have a knife for life, or at least for decades. And of course, after a few months of use, it would get blunt and you need to sharpen it. And this guy, you hear this, and of course, you call out to him, hey, I want to sharpen the knife. Yeah, I've even done this. I remember.
You've done this?
Yeah, I remember about 10, 15 years ago. I lived in an apartment block, and I didn't live very high up, and lived on the 3rd floor. And I heard the sound of the clanking. And I opened the windows. Oh, where? Like, wait there, repair, like knife sharpener. And then I took down a knife and I got him to sharpen it. It was very well sharpened.
Oh, wow.
One more. Okay, one more. Also a very, very typical one. Let's see. This is called the hutong. This also a very, very unique sound, as you'll hear. This twang. Now, it looks like a giant tuning fork. For those of you who have ever done music, they'll know what a tuning fork looks like. It's like a fork, 2 pieces of metal on one stick. It's like a Y shape. Yeah. And so you hold the Y shape, and you've got the 2 forks coming up like this. But whereas in a tuning fork, they go straight up. With this instrument, they almost touch at the end. So it's like this. The tuning fork prongs, they come together at the end like this, almost touching. And you stroke a metal rod between them, which causes them to vibrate and creating this twanging sound. The barber.
The bob. Oh.
The barber. China, not old Beijing, but we're talking about Qing dynasty. It was ruled by the Manchus, and the Manchus had a rule single to shave the front of the scalp, and this was by law. On penalty, you had to shave. You'd be actually a command. It wasn't just an advertising a service. In the old days, hundreds of years ago, at the beginning of the Qing dynasty, this sound was a command to come at their head. All men had heads every serve, and then after the Qing dynasty fell, and it was during hair back again, and it just became the barber. You can cut your hair.
I have a question, whether you know the answer or not. Why do they have to go out into the hutong and shout? Why couldn't they just, have a fixed, like a salon, or the doctor has a clinic for people to find him? Why do they have to walk around wandering in the hutong and call out for people to come and accept their service?
Basically, it's just good business sense. A lot of people now, they buy things online, and they want to stay at home, and they order something on an app on their phone, and the service, the product comes to them. It's exactly. It's that's why service you don't or the heat of the summer, you don't want to go out.
Oh wow! So this is more like a tailor-made service.
Yeah.
And right now we're talking about sound, 声音, 声音. So I have another question, Colin. So why do you initiate this kind of project? Why do you want to collect sound from the Beijing hutong?
Well, I've collected many other sounds except, apart from the Beijing hutongs, but we're in a hutong now, so we're introducing hutong sounds. This place that we're in, Shijia Hutong Museum, used to be my family's home.
Your family home.
And so the museum, when they were setting up this museum, they invited me to take part in their meetings, like on what kind of museum we should be doing. And so I have some knowledge and experience of old Beijing culture. And so I know that they have very interesting sounds. So I said, well, since you're doing a museum based on old Beijing culture or hutong culture, as they were originally intending, I said, well, have you thought of doing something with old Beijing sounds? Because Beijing culture is very, very sensitive when it comes to sound. And they said, oh, no, I haven't thought of that. So they said, well, Colin, why don't you come up with something, come up with a proposal? And so I was thinking about this, and I thought that some of these old Beijing sounds are interesting. So I thought I would collect these and introduce these. And then it turned out that nobody's done this before.
Yeah, the first one.
Which was very surprising. I thought that these were all so well known. The jiaomai, the yaohe, are Lao Beijing jiaomai is also called, is so famous through through performances. It's on TV, it's on radio for decades. That I thought, well, it must have been done before. After I recorded the sounds, I realized that actually, no, it's only been kind of like put on programs and performances, but never been systematically recorded and then introduced to the public. So it turns out that I did something quite by chance. I did this it was the first time it's been done, but that wasn't my intention. I just wanted a nice project in this museum.
This is really meaningful at the same time first. So thank you so much for your contribution at the same time. And for all the audiences on Facebook, YouTube, and Weibo, thank you so much for joining today's live stream. This is Yo-Yo, and today we are together right here in the Shijia Hutong Museum with my friend Colin. And right over here on this machine, we are playing different kind of sound that he also helped collecting from the Beijing Hutong. And a lot of people would make tailor service, and they will call out. They were more like a street hauler, we call them, and they're telling us whether they want to help you cut the hair, or they are the doctors. They are walking around the streets to call out their service. And today we have different kind of questions. Also, we have prizes on Weibo as well. For the Beijing audiences right now, right here we will change to speaking Chinese. 欢迎大家来收看今天的直播。我们所在的位置呢是史家博物馆，史家胡同博物馆。那么在这当中呢，我的朋友 Colin 他来发起了一个声音博物馆，那就是在这个位置，我们可以听到当年老北京胡同当中的声音，尤其是吆喝声和叫卖声。那么对于微博的一些观众朋友们呢，大家现在可以注意了，今天我们到了抽奖时间。So right now it is the gift time, and if you can answer my questions correctly, and you're welcome to collect a gift from us, only for Beijing audiences. Sorry about the audiences around the world, but you can also join in probably in the future. And right now, we're sending out the gifts on 微博。那么微博的朋友们请注意，我们现在呢来播放一段声音。大家首先前10位留言的观众朋友们，我们会给大家寄出一个帆布袋作为礼品。大家听到这个叫卖声，立刻留言在微博上告诉我们它是什么的叫卖，它是在卖什么东西。我们来选择一下哈。我们尽量不要选择太难的。So right now we're playing a sound of the street hauler. You can guess what kind of things is he selling, and you can guess what kind of thing is he selling. Right now we are going to play a sound, a piece of sound for you to guess what kind of things is he selling. 那我们现在在微博上开始抽奖，前10位留言的观众朋友们，每个人可以获得一个帆布袋，只有看留言才算数哦。他在卖什么东西？我们来听一下刚才有听过的其中一段吆喝声。
是吆喝声还是小气吆喝吗？
可以吆喝吧，吆喝吧，对对对。然后就看谁的手速快哈，看谁能猜出来他现在在卖什么东西，看谁的手速快。
OK， 来，因为这个我得想一下，因为它要太明显了也不行。
对对，是的。
OK， 那我觉得，要不然这个。不行，对，
可以，或者说看他来为大家提供什么样的服务哈，他到底是在叫卖什么，他要干什么？这个吆喝是
这个吆喝呢，现在还有这个就是它的那个声音不一样了，可是现在这个所有的胡同还是有这项服务所以那个大家可以参与。
So all the audiences on Weibo, if you're in Beijing right now, it is the prize time, and we're going to play a sound for you to guess what kind of service is he providing for the first 10 people who can leave the comment and answer the question correctly, and you can receive a prize, which is a lovely bag that will send out to the first 10 people, first 10 who can leave the comment and answer the question correctly. Okay, are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
有破烂我买，有旧衣服我买，破烂换起灯儿。
Finish? Okay. 好。
破烂我买，有旧衣服我买，破烂换起灯儿。
You sure? She's finished?
Okay.
All right. So, 微博的朋友们现在准备好了吗？前10位答对的观众朋友们可以得到我们的小礼品，就是一个很漂亮的帆布袋那刚才我们听到的这段吆喝声，它究竟是在做什么？它要做什么？它要提供给大家什么样的服务呢？现在欢迎大家踊跃的留言。那么接下来呢，我们来看一下脸书上面的互动评论，也欢迎大家如果有任何问题可以问一问我们的朋友们 call in。所以呢right now we're in the 史家胡同 Museum, and today we come to this special place, and here is a sound museum issued by Colin, and today we have listened to different kind of sound or street haulers. And right now, if you're on Facebook, feel free to leave a comment to us, and you can ask any kind of questions. We will answer your questions immediately. And right now there are a lot of comments. Okay, right now there are a lot of comments right here. Christian Castillo says a cool science data sound. The human ear can only until 20 kilohertz, and a bat can hear more than 200 kilohertz. We have very limited sound range. Well, that's for sure, Christine Castillo. I don't know whether you're a scientist or not, but that is very good data. Thank you so much. And Steven says, 谢谢你,不客气. And Jing Qing give us a thumbs up. And Christine Castillo said, last time I win the Latin riddle and Yo-Yo don't give me the gift. That was because I'm so sorry you're outside of China. But don't worry, because right now it is still during the pandemic era, and a lot of people couldn't send out the international mailing. But if you have a chance to visit China, I'm sure you can join our show as well. But thank you so much for your support to the show. And Mac Molino says, I love this segment. Colin, yeah, you have a lot of audiences around the world. And right now, Steven says, ice cream. Oh, ice cream. Okay. She's rather not selling ice cream.
The reason why we do have an ice cream seller, but that's not an ice cream
we
seller.
do have one. Could you, just for her, could you show us the sound of selling ice cream? Okay, we have a sound of people selling ice cream decades ago. Right now, we're playing a sound. 卖冰棍儿，对吧？
雪花酪。
哦，雪花酪。OK。
雪花酪。
冰激凌了个雪花酪， 买的多了给的多，有甜有凉就是好喝，叫你喝您就喝，叫你那尝这个您就尝，冰糖玫瑰往里头嚷，好吃不贵，拉拉煮的。果子干嘞，玫瑰枣，外带糊涂糕，
It's quite long.
一件事儿的水来个湿着海的冰，喝到您的嘴里是沙啦啷啦。
Okay. So that's the ice cream cellar, yes.
Wow, that's a nice ice cream. I heard you saying about that inside of the ice cream there's a sugar and roses.
Yeah.
Yeah, 玫瑰馅的玫瑰 roses. Wow, that is so nice.
Yeah, the song's probably nicer than the ice cream, to be honest.
Oh,
I think
really?
in those days, ice cream compared to today's ice cream, I think.
雪花酪
Yeah.
Have you ever tasted it?
No, I think nobody would like it nowadays because you can get real ice cream now, like with cream and nice stuff.
Yeah.
And in those days, things were simple.
Yeah, it sounds so delicious.
Sounds great. You know,
Yeah.
that's what advertising all about. You know.
Oh yeah, that was great. That was great. All right, so Kingsley says, Christian Castillo, when will China international flight resume? Well, actually, right now I think you can still take international flight,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are watching the live stream and Chang taste. Okay, Steven says, okay, I was wrong, haha, but 谢谢你, love this show, so cool. That is because we have these cool places to visit, but thank them to build it. And right now we can see a lot of museums are built up in Beijing, so we have a lot of chances to visit all different kind of museums and introduce to you. Thank you so much for watching the live stream, and today is the International Ear Care Day, 爱耳日, So it falls on March the 3rd every year, and right now we are also talking about how to protect your hearing, how to take good care of your ears, and we are using earphones all the time, but I have asked a question yesterday, like usually on average, how long do you use your headphone or earphones? So Colin, how long would you use that? Nowadays we cannot accept those, right?
I don't use my earphones so often. I use them when I'm working, and otherwise I try to avoid them because it's very tempting to, you know, wear your earphones and pump the volume right up, but it's really bad for your ears.
Yeah, and you will hear it, or you will just get louder and louder, so you will form the habit of that.
I think it's better to use speakers if you can, because you know then you know exactly what the volume is. But earphones are great when you're working because you want to cut out all the extra, all the noise outside.
Escape the real world.
Yeah.
That's so sure. And also, I've received some comments like a lot of people would use the earphones or the headphones in the subway. That was because there are a lot of noises, and people would like to, you know, soak into their own world or listen to the music, and that is also in the advertisement for the earphones and headphones as well. And right now, probably if you're in the subway, you have to adjust the volume a little bit higher than the outside world noises, so that makes the volume inside of your earphones a little bit more louder. So that is why, in order to protect your ears, probably you have to tune it down a little bit. So that is one tip for you guys to take good care of your ears. And while we are in this museum, we have the chance to take a look at some of the hutong. Actually, there is another lovely sculpture of that, and we will see in the next hall room. And we talk about this museum. Why is it so important? Why is it so famous? That was because this is also an important place for a lot of celebrities to get together. And right now, this is another hallway to show you some of the scholars have been to this museum. And right over here,
Who lived in this hutong.
Lived in this hutong as well. Wow. So that we talk about your family members.
Which is next door.
Which is next door. Okay, let's go directly to the next door and talk about your family.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So briefly, probably, Colin, could you shortly introduce your family to us?
Sure. So I'll give a little bit of history of this courtyard house we're in. And this was this is part of the mansion that belonged to my great grandfather, and here he was the last mayor of Beijing during the Qing dynasty. It's called 顺天府尹.
Oh, 二品.
一品.
Oh, 一品.
Yeah.
Okay, what does 一品 and 二品 mean to our audiences?
So it's like being a cabinet minister.
Oh, cabinet minister.
Or it's like being, one of the few government, kind of like the top tier of government officials.
You have all
so you have 1 tier, 2 tier, 3, all the way down to 9. And this is the first tier.
Okay.
So, okay. So he was the last mayor of Beijing during the Qing dynasty, and then he was in charge of all of Hebei province during the Republican era. So he was an important government official, and this is between two hutongs, right? So we're Shijia Hutong, which is where we're at. And the front gate of this mansion used to be in the next hutong.
Oh, to talk about that, I actually know how to show. Yeah, I actually know how to show our audiences in a more vivid way. We can go directly over there to see there's a big blueprint and sculpture to show you where is the hutong.
Yeah.
Okay, 我们去到沙盘的位置就可以看到了。Oh, those are all the hutongs. Yeah. Okay, so guess where we are. Guess where we are right now.
So
all right.
we're here. We're over there.
You
can see where I'm pointing, and there's a little tree there, and that's the Shijia Hutong Museum. Now, this entire section from this hutong is called Ganmian Hutong. That used to be the front gate to the mansion, and it would stretch all the way to the next hutong. Now, this is the deepest level you can have. This is the largest you can have, unless you go wide, because you're going from one hutong all the way to the next. Now, his mansion stretched all the way back. Where we are, it used to be his garden. He used to have a garden at the back of his house. Now, when his daughter got married, he had 14 children. His daughter was number 10, and but this daughter, Ling Shuhua, was his favorite daughter because she was very talented writer and painter, and he was really, really into culture. He loved literature and art, and so since she was so talented, he decided to give part of his house directly to her. When she got married, he converted his garden into a house, and so that was the dowry for her wedding. So she could live with my grandfather in that part of the mansion, so it became her house, and that's where we're at. So it's now cut off. It was cut off from the rest of the mansion and became its own unique house. So that's
wow, that was beautiful. Okay, so to talk about those courtyard and the beautiful hutong, actually we have another model right over here. Let me shortly introduce it to you. And right over here you see this is one of the courtyards. 这边呢就是有四合院，这是一个比较标准的中国的四合院。那当时你有住过这样的四合院吧？肯定。
我住大杂院。
大杂院，大杂院跟四合院有什么不一样？
大杂院就是你看不见那个院了，里边已经都搭建满了，有好多那个小砖头的那些小房子，不是当年的那些建筑物。然后其实你在大杂院里边住的时候，你根本就看不见原来的格局是什么格局，就是你推个自行车就有点困难，就特别窄啊，
特别窄。
对，其实我们现在看的是一个完整的四合院。大杂院的时候，就是这些有院子的地方都已经也有房子。
都已经挤满了。OK， 所以这边呢，我们看到是一个应该算是很正规的一个大户人家的四合院了哈。So for all the overseas audiences right now, you are seeing the famous 四合院 the Chinese courtyard, and right over here, so 这边呢是史家胡同the courtyard
23号
number 23 23号。那么从前面这个位置呢是一个正门。So for all the audiences around the world right now, you you can see this is a standard Chinese courtyard, and usually the front gate, it is by the side. It is not in the middle, it is by the side. And we call it Chinese feng shui. We put it right on the side so nothing will go directly to the courtyard center. And for this part, when we go into the courtyard, we call it 三进, so 3 entrances, and that is a very rich or prestigious family will have. So right here is 一进, and you can see there's a hallway. Right over here is a hallway, and right over there in the courtyard in the middle is 二进, the second entrance, and back then for that part is 三进, the third entrance. 所以这边呢就是有一进、二进、三进院，然后前边这个位置呢是一个影壁 ，you have a wall built right here next to the gate, and for that, nothing like evil or nothing bad, or we call it bad feng shui. When they enter into the first gate, they will not directly rush into the main hall. They will go this way. 所以呢，旁边还会有这样的长廊 for all those hallways. Why does it linking directly to those different rooms on the side? That was because we call it 应该叫游廊，是叫游廊叫抽手游廊。那么在这边呢 so for all those hallways, when it's raining outside, you can directly walk under those hallways. So you can just put your hands inside of your sleeves, and you will not be under the rain. So those hallways are for you during those rainy days. So this is a standard courtyard for prestigious families, like his families. Okay, so right over here is a standard courtyard, and to walk that way you can see different kind of rooms in this courtyard, and we are talking about different rooms. So who in the family has more has higher social rankings will be living in those main rooms. 所以这边呢我们看到是正房，这边是正房。然后呢，在整个四合院的中心，我们看到正对着这个大门的坐北朝南的那边呢是正房，然后在这两边的厢房叫做耳房，像人的耳朵一样，像今天是爱耳日嘛，像人的耳朵一样。通常情况下呢，会给他的孩子们住，那长子会坐东边的耳房是给长子住的。So for the firstborn, especially for the firstborn son, will be living in this room, and the key room is over there. And for back there, 2 different houses will be hosting the maid 在前是女的。privacy issues. So for this one is the main house, and these 2 are for the ladies inside of the family. So that is a standard courtyard in China. 这边呢就是中国传统的四合院，都是大户人家的院子，像他的家的院子。All right, so let's go back there. Okay, we have seen how pretty the courtyard is for his family, and right now this is also another place for a lot of prestigious people and celebrities to get together inside of the houses. And right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my grandmother, because she was a writer and a painter, and her father was an important official. Her father already were friends with all the most famous, most important cultural figures of the day. He loved literature and art, and so he got famous artists and writers to come to his house for parties, for social engagements, right?
Wow.
And then he also managed, because of this, he could afford and he could manage to get some of the most important cultural figures to be my grandmother's tutor. My grandmother's name is Ling Shuhua. For those people who are familiar with Republican era, the Chinese Republican era.
I think we have a picture of her, right?
That's right.
All right. So.
This is my grandmother, and that's my grandfather.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so they're called Ling Shuhua, and so some of for people who know about the literature of that time, the 1920s, 30s, 40s, she's quite a well-known figure. So she was very talented writer and painter, but most importantly was her writing, especially novellas, short stories. And so she had some very important teachers. Her teachers were like her English teacher, her painting teacher, all extremely famous scholars and artists and writers of the time. So she was already famous by the age of like 22 or 23. And then she married, my grandfather's called Chen Yuan, and his literature name pseudonym is Chen Xiying, and he was a scholar who taught at Peking University, but he spent many years in London, in Britain. So in his high school and university, he was actually in Britain. So his English was very, very good.
Well, actually, from the stories that we have done, our background stories research, actually we heard that even Tagore has been to this courtyard himself.
Right.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah, Tagore came here. My grandmother hosted him when he was here, and because there used to be lots of parties, just to continue my great-grandfather's tradition. My grandmother also hosted parties here with the most famous figures of the day, the cultural figures of the day. So when Tagore came to Beijing, it was a big, big, big deal for everyone here. So this was the most natural place to come. And he actually painted a painting for my grandmother. And I remember going to my grandmother's house and seeing that painting. I didn't know what it was. Of course, I didn't know who Tagore was when I was a child. But I remember this painting of the landscape with the boat in the middle of a lake and some mountains in the background. And I didn't know. But later on I found out, oh, that's Tagore's painting. Yeah,
oh, wow.
To my grandmother.
That was a great story. Thank you for sharing. And right now, let's see. All the audiences around the world have left us a lot of comments. And for Weibo users, 那所以呢，微博上面的朋友，尤其如果你在北京的话，还记得我们刚才有听过的那一段老北京的吆喝声吗？是我们Colin 的这个声音博物馆当中刚才有放过的一段声音。那么它究竟在吆喝什么呢？前10位留言答对问题的朋友呢，可以能够收到我们的一个奖品，就是一个很精美的帆布袋。那么欢迎大家踊跃的留言。And right now we'll see a lot of new comments on Facebook as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Yoyobo. Today we come to the Shijia Hutong Museum, and right here we've also have experienced a beautiful and lovely sound museum initiated by Colin. And today we also talked about some of the courtyard in China. We also talk about hutong. And if you have more questions, feel free to leave a comment on Facebook or YouTube. You can also leave a comment on Weibo. Find us 英语环球广播. You can also find us on Facebook, CRI Learn Chinese, or on YouTube, CRI Learn Chinese. Thank you so much for tuning in. And at last, I will remind you, if you still have some time, you can also leave a comment on Weibo to compete for our prizes, which is a beautiful, lovely clothes bag. 那所以呢，今天答对问题的朋友们呢，可以在微博上留言，来看一下究竟刚才吆喝的是什么。一会儿在结束的时候呢，我们会公布正确的答案。Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's walk outside. I see the lovely courtyard. 那么现在呢，我们来到这个博物馆的院子中心来看一下，这边院子中心非常漂亮哈。那说到胡同以及我们的四合院的文化，我们看到以前的建筑还是很漂亮的。然后我们在前面这个位置是可以走出去的，在前面的位置可以走出去的。Alright, we come outside. Wow, this is a lovely courtyard. OK, 所以这边呢，我感觉还可以种葡萄，可以是一个葡萄藤，非常的漂亮。那在夏天的时候，像在这个位置可以坐在 停在下面，可以跟朋友叙旧，可以跟朋友聊天，是一个非常好的读书会友的地方。So right here today we come to the 史家胡同 Museum. We would like to introduce a lot more about Chinese stories to all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. 那么刚才呢，在微博上留言的朋友们，大家有没有答对呢？好，现在到了公布问题答案的时间了。刚才他给大家提供的服务，那个吆喝到底是什么呢？
是收破烂的。
收破烂，大家知道破烂是什么吗？就是
It's a rubbish collector.
Yes, a rubbish collector 是收垃圾的。那同时呢，他会在街上。
No, sorry, wrong English. That was my bad.
Okay.
Not rubbish collector. It's the collector of old things you want to sell. Like old bits and bobs, like your
a
old
second-hand market?
Yeah, no, it's kind of like old clothes or like an old pot you don't want to use anymore for recycling, or bottles and old beer bottles and
you
things like that.
You can sell it.
So you can sell it as raw materials, or you can recycle it or something like that. Yeah.
All right. So if you have used things and you don't want it anymore, you can sell it to him, and then you can both get away from that not second-hand thing, and you can sell it, you can make some money at the same time. They'll collect it. That is the charm part, I think. 所以呢，刚才我们听到的是收破烂的，也就是说，如果大家有一些什么二手的东西不想要了，同时呢，还有这样的人他在大街上吆喝，如果你有了，那同时呢，他可以叫他过来，然后你把你的一些不要的破壶啊，或者是碗筷、锅碗瓢盆一类的东西，如果你不要了，你问他收不收？如果他收，你还可以卖钱。这就是当年在老北京胡同里面叫收破烂的吆喝声，收破烂的吆喝声。And there are a lot more interesting things we're going to show you later in the day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Right now we can still hear the hauling in the street. 现在我们还可以听到吆喝声。那么感谢大家今天的参与。那接下来呢，我们会为大家带来更精彩的直播。接下来我们还会去到养老院和大家体察北京的医疗系统。非常感谢大家今天的关注。Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Yo-Yo together with my friend Colin. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.